the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
They're keeping up with the SEC here, months out, the start of the 2024 regular season, but fourth best title odds now in the conference and 9.5 for Tennessee. When you hear that number, Ryan, and you see stock rising for Tennessee, what does that say to you about, and how much does that change how you're viewing Tennessee in year 4 under Heupel?
To me, it's just a number that made more sense to begin with. I never really got 8.5. That felt low to me. Not necessarily when you're talking about Tennessee's team, but when you're talking about the schedule. I would say at 9.5, to me, I guess I don't know what it says, or it makes you feel, if Tennessee is going to win 10 games, you got to beat NC State, which is, like, to me, the fourth hardest game on the schedule, and a little bit of a swing game, a game you should win. But again, like, Tennessee hasn't always looked great early in the season. Have they ever looked great early in the season under Heupel? I mean, it took them an absolute dogfight to beat a backup quarterback at Pitt 2 years ago, and they won 10 games and beat Alabama. So that's the one that, when you're talking about winning 10 games, is an absolute must, because when I just look around outside those 3 SEC games I talked about earlier, like, I don't see the loss. Mississippi State, Kentucky at home, Vanderbilt on the road, Arkansas on the road. I don't see it. And I think when you talk about just having those Alabama and Oklahoma games, to me, I think Tennessee probably, most logically splits those. So to me, that's kind of the path to 10-2. And obviously NC State's the one you have to win.
It's interesting. You're NC State. I'm just not really nervous about NC State. NC State doesn't really scare me as a Tennessee fan alum here. I don't know, Ethan. Does Ryan's scheduling point make the most sense to you? It's just that, like, when you look at the schedule, 9.5 just makes the most sense because Tennessee is going to be favored. I mean, they were favored in 10 games last year? I think Tennessee was right around there. Ultimately, they ended up going 8-4, but I think they were favored in 10 games, if I remember correctly, at the time of kickoff. I think that's going to be the case again. Like, I think they're going to be right around. I mean, we'll see with Alabama at home. I think it's fair to assume at this point that they'll probably be favored against Bama at home this fall. We'll see how it ultimately plays out. But, I mean, outside of Georgia, I don't see any glaring. Oklahoma, maybe on the road, is probably your 2 games where you're not favored. I don't know. It's hard to find those. And I think that's why, to Ryan's point, 9.5 feels right, because Tennessee's going to be favored in a lot of these games again, and Tennessee has a great chance to win double-digit games for the second time in the regular season in the Heupel era. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's weird for me to hear you say that Tennessee could be favored against Alabama, and I don't think you're totally crazy. Tennessee could absolutely be favored at home against Alabama. I mean, we're underestimating how much. Well, I don't think we're underestimating, but I'm just going to go away from that train of thought. Alabama without Nick Saban is very obviously going to be different. I mean, there's a way we could look up and Alabama's lost 3 games by the time that they get to Tennessee. There's a way we could look up and they've lost no games also. I mean, obviously he did great things at Washington. To answer your question, I agree with all of Ryan's points. The scheduling is the main reason why. You have to think about it. The Vols are missing Missouri on that schedule. They're missing Texas on that schedule. They're missing Ole Miss on that schedule. And I think that's a big reason why 4th in the SEC is why we're sitting where they are. Why 4th is very much in the realm of possibility, because Georgia's going to be tough. Obviously, it's in Athens. That's going to be very tough. Alabama, I understand everything I just said. It's still probably going to be at the very least a competitive game because it's Tennessee, Alabama. It's 3rd Saturday in October. Oklahoma's one I think I'm putting a little more emphasis on, and not because I think Oklahoma is necessarily all that. I mean, they're probably going to be a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. I think they're going to struggle year one in the SEC. I think they're going to be worse off than Texas, obviously, with what they have going on over there. But I don't know. There's just something about it. Early season, you got to go to Norman. It is in Norman, right? It's not in Knoxville?
No, it's in Norman, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and so, I mean, you got to go there early in the season. NC State will have just happened very soon after. I don't know exactly when it is. I'm not too perfectly plugged in, but I know it's very soon after NC State. So that Oklahoma one, that's going to be the important one. And if you can win that Oklahoma one, 9.5 over should easy be the log, because there's not really even anybody I could see like making that Missouri jump that they did last year, you know? Like, I mean, people thought Missouri was going to be okay. I don't think anyone thought Missouri was going to be top 3 in the conference good, though. And, I mean, Mississippi State's not going to do that. I don't see Kentucky doing that. Auburn is my team that I think could do that for what it's worth, and they're not on the schedule either. So it's a very favorable schedule for Tennessee. 9.5 and 4th in the SEC, I think, are very plausible.
And look, it's easy to overlook this. It's not like a formality, but Heupel's lost one home game in the last 2 years, and it was against arguably the best team in the country. Like, it was against Georgia. That's it. That's the end of the list, is Georgia at home in the last 2 years. Like, there's a reason he had that win streak coming into the Georgia game last year, and it obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to, but a lot of great home games. Like, you get Florida back at home. That's important. You get Kentucky at home. You get Mississippi State at home. You get Alabama at home. Obviously the biggest one out of anybody. Actually, I'd probably say Florida, probably the more important to get at home based on just Tennessee sports history, Tennessee football history, that is. But I just think, to y'all's point, it's really at Oklahoma and it's at Georgia. And then I don't see any other scare. I mean, it's kind of wild that NC State might be the 4th most difficult test on the schedule, but I think a lot of that is because it's at a neutral site and it's early in the Nico era, and we'll see how it looks. And it could feel like the Pitt game from 2 years ago early on, because NC State's a good team. They're a 9-10 win team in the ACC, and they should be good again this year. But Grayson McCall should be under center for them, and we'll see if they can keep up with Tennessee. But I don't know. Either way, you're feeling good, because if you hit the over there, I think you're a playoff team. I think it's going to be very hard to see a scenario where a 10-2 SEC team misses out on the playoff this year. So if you get to 10, it's the march to 10, I think, for the Vols, and I think you're in. Final thing here. Ryan, this weekend, Tennessee baseball, run ruled Bowling Green all 3 games. We get 3 different pitchers. No AJ Russell, who they're being extra cautious with. The biggest standouts to you, though, from the weekend that was, as the Tennessee Volunteers continue on their long win streak here out of the gate?
2 guys, one on the mound and one behind the plate. But AJ Causey, I mean, he's one of the guys that I thought was, sneakily an option for
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.